Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. This is going to be a very casual video. What we're going to do is compare the two new sets of Paul Rubens watercolors. I've already swatched them out initially, but I thought the best way to compare these would be to swatch them side by side on the same paper, because I realized I had done my swatches for the Qiaomei tube watercolors on the same paper as I did their pan watercolors, and I did find the colors to be really good matches, but I didn't do them on the same paper as I did the Meiliang watercolor tube set. So these are essentially two new tube sets from Paul Rubens watercolors. Actually, they sell all kinds of different paints, but they came out with tube sets to refill their pan palettes. So we all know the pretty excellent Meiliang palettes. Those are my #1 pick for a budget watercolor for like the last 7 years. They were such a find when I came across them on Amazon. Never heard of them before. Way back 7 years ago, and they just knocked my socks off. They were so good. And so they came out with a tube set to replace the, if you bought the pan set in the past and you've run out of colors. I thought that was really awesome. And so I did a swatching video on these. If you want to see that, you can find that on my channel. I posted it about a couple of weeks ago, a week or two ago. And now they also came out with this set here to refill this palette of 24. Now, something I noticed when I was reviewing the set of 24 was that some of the colors matched by the numbers, but when I swatched them out side by side, I found that the Qiaomei watercolors, which is this 24 set, the colors were a little bit stronger, more transparent, and more robust than the Meiliang paints. They seemed a little bit more fine quality, a better quality of paint. So I thought today it would be a really interesting video. Maybe it's not, maybe just interesting to me, but I thought it would be really interesting to swatch out these Qiaomei watercolors versus the Meiliang watercolors, both by the same company, and see which one is better. Price-wise, both of these sets, a set of 35 colors that are in 5 ml tubes, and the set of 24 watercolors that are in 12 ml tubes are the same price. They're both running around, I think, $35.99 on Amazon. But you actually get 100 mLs more of paint in this set. And I think my thoughts are, just on my initial swatches, is that these are better quality paint. So for the same amount of money, right now I'm going to say go with these, but let's swatch these and see what we think. Obviously, if you love the Meiliang watercolors and you're running low and you want tubes to fill them up, you do get twice as much paint, at least twice as much paint in this set of tubes as you would a tin of the Meiliang paints. If you already have the tin and you just want to refill it, that's a good option. I go into the pros and cons of this a lot more in the other video. Please refer to that if you want more information. But I would generally say buy fewer colors of a higher quality paint, and I think that's what we're getting here with these Qiaomei watercolors. I think it's confusing how they use the same color numbers across the line of paints, because I think that just confuses the consumer. So I'm here to get to the bottom of it. Which is better? Is there any difference? And the way to find that out is to swatch these on the same color paint, the same paper. So I have prepared a sheet here. This is just the B watercolor paper. I really like this for practice and for swatching paints out. This is what it looks like. You can find it at Walmart. You get 50 sheets for about $10. You really can't beat it for things like tags, greeting cards, bookmarks. Anytime you want something that you can just practice your watercolor on, I highly recommend it. And without further ado, let's get to it. All right, the first color that share the same number is number 346. It's lemon yellow hue under the Qiaomei watercolor line, and it is called lemon yellow under the Meiliang. So I have the Qiaomei on the left with a Q. That's how it's spelled. This is does it say it right there? That's how it spells. And then I have an M for the Meiliang, which also means pretty excellent. That's the one with the parrot on it. So we are going to do, I'm just going to put a little dot of each color, because I mean, I compared the pan paints. I don't think I did it on camera, but I did compare it just out of my own curiosity. And oh, by the way, let's compare the pigments in these. I think the pigments are the same. PY176 in the Meiliang, and PY175 for the Qiaomei. So it's not exactly the same pigments here according to the tubes. And I'm just trying to keep a pretty even amount of paint there. And let's use a nice soft round brush. I got a Princeton Neptune right here. I'm gonna just liquefy that dot. beautiful color there. Shoo, excuse me. And now the Meiliang. Oh, actually the Meiliang looks a little bit brighter here. But I think I might have got a little bit more paint. Not a huge difference. I feel like the Qiaomei might be a little bit more transparent, but overall, I'd say pretty much the same. The next color is 109. And for a pigment, we have cadmium yellow hue is the name of the Qiaomei. Cadmium yellow is the name of the Meiliang. Pigment is in the Qiaomei PY97 and PY65. And in the Meiliang, it's PY97 and PY65. So same pigment numbers here. Now keep in mind, there's, going to be a little bit of human discrepancy or maybe even human error. I'm trying to be as equal as I can with the paint distribution, but I'm not a robot. I think some of the colors may not seem. This is the Qiaomei. Lovely. And this is the Meiliang. Those two look very similar. I have the black line there, and I did these lines last night. Meiliang seems a little bit weaker. And I actually think I might have put a little bit more of the Meiliang paint out. Yeah, I'm just looking, it feels like the Qiaomei is a little bit more vibrant and consistent, and the Meiliang's a little bit more streaky and weak, so it probably has a little bit more filler in it. But pretty close. The Qiaomei also feels a little bit warmer, looks a little warmer in temperature. The next color we have is 119. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it would be, let's see, we did 109, the next color is 103, I'm sorry, 103, and that is cadmium red in Meiliang, and it is cadmium red pale hue in Qiaomei. The pigment numbers on the Qiaomei is PY65, and it says PY255, but I think they mean PR255. And on the same misprint on the cadmium red on the Meiliang, they're saying PY65 and PY255. It's going to be PR255. So they've got the same misprint there, which is kind of comical. All right, trying to get about the same thing. Now these you had to pierce the hole with a cap on the tubes. On the Qiaomei, they were already pierced. I think the cap here pierces it. I've never really thought about that before. I'd say that's about the same. There's a bigger hole in the Qiaomei watercolor tube, so I'm just being careful not to get too much. Just to keep it fair. All right, so first let's look at the Qiaomei. Oh, the Meiliang's drying faster too on that previous color, if that's something to note. I don't know if I got enough of this, but oh, it's a beautiful color. Beautiful and transparent. Meiliang is also beautiful. The way it's settling into the divots of the paper is different. I'm getting a little bit, almost looks like a granulation effect here. And on the Meiliang it's more smooth. That's a little bit more of an interesting effect. And it does seem like the Qiaomei is staying wetter longer. I'll have to be careful that I'm not putting more water in one than the other. I don't think I am, but I will try to make sure that I'm not. The next color is 502. That is, let's see, Permanent Rose in Qiaomei. It is rose red in Meiliang, but I think I've seen it called permanent rose on the pan. So sometimes the names get switched up. So in Qiaomei it is PV19, and in Paul Rubens Meiliang, or Pretty Excellent, it is also PV19. This is a very useful color. I use this one a lot. So I teach with the Meiliang pigment in my 30 Days to Better Painting class. Oh, I've got quite a bit of that one, so I'll have to try to make sure I do the same. And that's one of the colors that I use as one of my basic colors. I might have more of the Meiliang, but I don't want to get too much of the Qiaomei and make it unfavorably, because I think this is better paint overall, so I don't want to like push it that way a little bit more. You know what I mean? I want to give the Meiliangs a fair shot. Now this color here, I'm already seeing it happen. This is one of the colors that I had scaliness in on the original swatches. So the previous colors. So I just want to show you that. So that texture there, that was something that I noticed in the previous swatch I did on this paper. I'm already seeing it apparent there, and I'm not seeing it in the Qiaomei. So that's one thing I'm testing for, is if it's gonna, that color that had the scaliness, if that was gonna be the case. Okay, so first the Qiaomei, brush full of water. Liquify. Oh, it's so pretty. I think I may have a little bit more of the Meiliang pigment out, but so pretty. So this paper, I don't want to like make it seem like it is the best thing since sliced bread. It's not, but it's a great I swatch generally on Fabriano Studio paper, which is a 25% cotton, 75% cellulose paper, and this reminds me of that so much. I'm just right here, right, what I'm doing is just getting the pigment dissolved. I'd say these two are very comparable. I had less of a drop of paint with the Qiaomei, and it's a little bit darker, but it's a pretty small difference. Overall, I am feeling that the Qiaomei paints are a better quality. Okay, the next color is 003. That is, let me find 003. Where are you? 003, alizarin crimson hue in Qiaomei, and it's called Madder Red in Meiliang. The color is PR206 and PR206 on both of them. Now, as far as I know, these tubes are not available in either line open stock, so you'd have to buy a set if you wanted. Oh, good grief. There we go. So you'd have to get a set. Should I try to get that out of the lid? Nah. So that's something to consider. You know, you gotta buy the whole set if you want them. So it might not be ideal. So you just gotta kind of weigh whether the amount of colors that you want from the set that you would use and divide that up by the price that you're paying, and that's a good way to figure out whether it's a good fit for you. All right, clean off the brush, kind of wipe off the extra water, but I do want to make sure that I have the brush loaded. This does look like an alizarin crimson. This is a good representation for alizarin crimson, which is that kind of like a bloody red, gorgeous jewel tone, kind of like a ruby color. Very pretty, very intense, very transparent. Now, the colors do not match on these two, nor is the color payout matching. I'm actually going to clean out the inner cap of this because that color, is that? Let me just double check. 003. Yep, that's the same number, same pigment number, and same color number. This also does look like an alizarin crimson, though. But definitely weaker. Definitely weaker. I prefer the Qiaomei because it's a little bit more saturated, a little bit brighter. The Meiliang, though, probably actually looks a little bit more like a traditional alizarin crimson, even though they're calling it Madder Red. So yeah, I see probably the most significant difference out of all the colors so far in that, and then the texture of this, but it's not super, like, it's not standing out. The scaliness of that color is not standing out super bad. All right, let's get some hair on there. The next color is 544, and that is a mauve color, Purple Lake. And they're calling it Violet Red in Meiliang, but both have the color number 544. The pigment number in Qiaomei is PR88, and in it's also PR88 in the Meiliang. Excuse me if you heard my mini burp. I just did a mini burp. Isn't that embarrassing? We're all friends here, though, right? Oh, good grief. Let's see if I can get the tiniest of dots. I'd say that's about fair. Maybe I have a little bit bigger of the Qiaomei. Let me get a little bit more of the Meiliang. You know what? I'll just use the, I'll clean out the cap. That will make it about equal. There we go. Dilute it here, get it integrated with our water. That's such a pretty color. I love a color like this, a nice mauve violet color. Such a pretty color. So nice if you like to do florals, which I do. I'm gonna have to look up PR88 though, because I'm not really that knowledgeable about that pigment. I'm just gonna clean that out. It's probably a quinacridone, but I'm not super knowledgeable, so I'm going to leave this out so I remember to take a look at that pigment and get back to you on that. There's so many, there's hundreds of pigments. I can only keep the most popular ones in my head at one time. Ooh, that is pretty. Right off the bat, I don't know. I almost see seeing some residue in that color, but let me look at it on my bigger swatch of. I don't see any sediment on there. I was thinking I see a little bit of scaling in there, but I don't see it on this swatch, so we'll have to see how it dries. All right, next color is 139, and that is Sky Blue in Meiliang, and it's called Cerulean Blue Hue in the Qiaomei. The pigment in Qiaomei is just listed as PB15, which is a phthalo blue, and on the Qiaomei, it's on the Paul Rubens Meiliang, it's called also PB15. Now this, I believe, has some sort of white added to it, but they don't need to disclose it if it is like PW4, because that's also an extender. So we'll have to see. It definitely looks like there's some white, and the colors just right out of the tube look a little different. The Qiaomei looks like it has more white in it. All right. If it seems like I have more of this color, then I will add more of the Meiliang. This definitely is the cerulean hue, or almost even looks like a manganese blue hue. I'd say there's definitely white added into it because the PB15 on its own is very transparent and very intense. Looking at the white line, there's a little bit of opacity, nothing alarming. This one might be where Meiliang does a better job. See, the Meiliang doesn't seem to have it doesn't seem to have the addition of the white. If it does, it doesn't have much. And I think I had a little bit less of the paint out too. So I would say Meiliang's a winner in that too. If you want a more pigmented color, definitely a little less will go further of that. How interesting. All right, the next color is 179. I'm just going to peek at this, make sure I didn't like mess up and put the wrong. Nope, that was right. on 179, which is cobalt blue in the Meiliang, and it is cobalt blue hue in the Qiaomei. The colors are PB29 and PW5 in the Qiaomei. Pretty typical for a cobalt blue hue for them to use ultramarine blue plus white. I could do without that, honestly, because I could mix that if I wanted to, or I could just dilute ultramarine blue. And then, but they might use a different variation of ultramarine blue. They might use an ultramarine blue green shade, because cobalt is a little bit more neutral and ultramarine blue is a little bit more red. This one is also PB29 and PW5, so same pigment makeup. And the paint looks different, a little bit different right out of the tube. The Meiliang looks a little bit more reddish, and the Qiaomei looks a little bit more neutral to cool, just kind of yeah, cooler leaning. Not a huge difference, but let's add water and see what we get. This would be kind of like if I ran out of the ultramarine, then I would start using the cobalt blue, like in my mixes. But I make it a point not to run out of ultramarine blue. You should see I have a laughable backstock of ultramarine blue. It's like, I remember it was like early on in the pandemic, and there was like a shortage announced of PB29 because, like, I guess one or a couple pigment houses stopped making it, and I was like, how can you do that to us? I know the painting industry does not drive pigment sales, but that's such a popular color. I would think that the painting industry could do it. Now, here's something that's really interesting. If I look at the Qiaomei, which is the one of the larger tubes, I'm getting a much nicer granulation here. And here I'm almost getting more of the scaling, a little bit of granulation. And you might be thinking, Lindsay, you talk about granulation texture as a desirable texture in your watercolor paint, but you talk about the scaling, which is an undesirable texture. And the difference is granulation kind of like, it's like you see the pigment splitting apart, and you're getting this texture, but the texture is actually the color of the paint, or maybe there'll be several colors in the paint that split apart and gives you a lovely appearance of texture. The scaling is, it's really apparent in this swatch here, and right, well, I don't know if it's apparent on video, but I do have a picture of that on my blog. It's more of like you're seeing these white specks. It's almost like the chalk in there is like separating from the pigment, and you're getting this kind of like, it almost looks like a mineral deposit on your sink. That's what I mean by scaling, and it's not an attractive feature in general. I mean, if you like the way it looks, then and it's attractive to you, then rock on. You're going to enjoy some cheap paint, and I am very happy for you. But generally, it is not a desirable look. The next color is 660. That is ultramarine. The label on that is not very good. And then we've got 660 here on the Qiaomei. This is a more accurate label. PB29 as expected. PB29 as expected. This is my most used color. I use more ultramarine blue than any other color in my watercolor box. It's the one I need to refill the most often. And I buy this in the Honkin tubes from Da Vinci, generally the 37 ml tubes, because I use them so much. And especially when I used to teach, that's what I would buy, because I would be able to, like, if somebody was running out of a basic color, they bought like a set and it didn't have like something I would consider a basic color in there, then let me give us a little bit more of the Meiliang, because I think I was a little light on that. It's a color that I use so much, and I want to make sure I have extra, and if anybody's running out, I want to be able to put that on their palette for them. Alright, so we're going to take the brush with water. This color, man, I never get tired of it. It's such a wonderful mixer, too. It makes beautiful grays. You mix this with any of your browns, you're going to get the most beautiful textured, granulating grays. It's such a useful color. Look how intense that is. Definitely doesn't look like a budget paint. She's gorgeous. She's gorgeous. I could have had more water in this. I had more paint than I need to for this swatch, but man, oh man, I love that color. It is a powerhouse. Okay, the next one is the Pretty Excellent, or Meiliang. Oh, that's also pretty. That's also gorgeous. I don't think they I don't think they skimped on this. I'm thinking that the Meiliang one is a little bit redder, which would make sense. The Meiliang cobalt blue is definitely a little bit greener compared to the, it's not a green color. It's not a green leaning color by any stretch of the imagination. It's more neutral, but it's more green than their ultramarine blue. So that's a cobalt, that's the ultramarine. And I think the reason they did that is because they probably used a French ultramarine or more the red leaning ultramarine shade for their ultramarine blue in the Meiliang, and they probably used a more green leaning ultramarine green shade for the cobalt. And the fact that those are both in that set, I think makes perfect sense for the Meiliang. I gotta say, as far as the set goes, comparing the Meiliang set to the Qiaomei set, the Meiliang set is a much better, logically thought out, useful set of colors because of what they've included. With the Qiaomei being 24 colors, I wish they would have gone a little differently with some of their choices. I think the Qiaomei is better paint, but as far as the selection and layout, the Meiliang is better. Because like if you look at the diversity between this color and that color versus the diversity between that color and that color, this is still purple leaning. This is purple leaning. Here, this is slightly more green leaning. This is slightly more red leaning, and then if you compare it and you add in that those three, you've got this wonderful gamut of mixing blues. So, you know, there's so many things to consider when you're choosing a set. We're all different. We're all going to like different things, and it's just important to know what's in a set when you're spending your hard-earned dollars on it. Even if you're spending fewer dollars on a budget set, still, you know, you don't want to buy something you're not going to use. The next color is 327. That is Payne's Gray in Meiliang, and it is Indigo in the Qiaomei. Pigment-wise, let's look at that. We have PB15, PBK7, and PB29. So that's phthalo blue, black, and ultramarine blue. Here we have PB15, PB29, and PBK7. So same pigments, but they have put the PB29 before the PBK7. So that would lead us to believe that there's more of the two blue pigments than the black pigment. So we'll have to see if that is the case when we swatch it out. So going by pigment, the way the pigments are listed, I would expect the Qiaomei to be more gray and the Meiliang to be more blue. And let's see if that is the case. Aside from typos on the Paul Rubens sets, I think their pigment information is pretty accurate. You know, there's a language barrier, and I think we need to kind of keep that in mind when we're buying sets that are made in other countries, especially in China where the language is so different. Okay, the Qiaomei. This is a lovely gray color. A little bit of granulation from the ultramarine blue. Very pretty, very transparent. Actually, I'm not mad at the transparency of any of the colors on here. Probably the most opaque one is actually the Qiaomei Cobalt Blue. That's more opaque than the Meiliang one. And now we're looking at the Meiliang, which we determined, which I gotta look back at my memory. This should be less black just because of the arrangement of the pigments. And actually, yeah, I would say this is leaning a little bit more blue. And the Qiaomei almost has a bit of a greenish undertone to it, which is kind of strange. A bit of a blue-green undertone to it. They're both lovely colors, though. I actually have to say I like the Meiliang one better on that. I don't know if they'll be offering open stock. I would highly doubt that they're going to offer open stock of these just because of the expense of bringing out open stock. You're not going to bring out open stock paint for $1 a tube. You're going to have to spend probably, like, charge at least, you know, $4. So then when you start thinking, well, I'm going to pay $4 for one tube when I can buy 36 for $36, you know, you have to weigh, like, how many do I need to refill? If I'm going to need to refill more than, like, you know, 6 of them, then I would just buy the big pack. You know what I mean? All right, we're going to keep on moving on and fill in this last row. I actually went out of order. I didn't realize it. That was 322 that we just did, and I had 327 written down. So I'm going to do 327 here, which is Fresh Blue in the Meiliang colors, or Intense Blue in the Qiaomei. Intense Blue is a phthalo blue. I always thought that was a trade name for Winsor & Newton, but I guess it isn't. I always thought it was one of those trade names, like Grumbacher has the phthalo THALO colors. But anyways, PB15 for Qiaomei and PB15 for Meiliang. Usually it's a PB15:3, and those colons do mean something. The like a PB15:6 would be a sapphire, like a phthalo sapphire, more reddish one. PB15:3 is more of a greenish. You know, they have different shades depending on the I feel like I got too much there. Maybe not. Let's that's such an intense color anyways. I should, hence the name, I probably should have used even less. Yeah, that's fine. Really beautiful, cool blue. This is what I like to use for mixing blue, because it mixes really good, because it's so transparent, it mixes really good colors. Now this one, the Meiliang, looks a little bit more green. It's very subtle, but it's a little bit more on the turquoise, leaning towards the turquoise color, and the Qiaomei is a little bit more, like, it almost looks like the Qiaomei is a PB15:3 and the Meiliang is a PB15, which is a little bit more turquoise, generally. Or even, it looks kind of like a PB17, which is a little bit more turquoise. But all phthalo colors. These are synthetic organic colors, means they're made in a lab, but they're carbon-based. I don't know how they do that. I'm not a scientist. Take everything I say with a grain of salt and go consult a real scientist. All right, next color is 599. I like the look of the Qiaomei one so far already a little bit more, but they're both good. All right, 599. That one is tree green and sap green. And I think actually on the literature with these paints, like on the pans, I think like either the pan says sap or the swatch says sap, but the number is 599 either way. Their swatches and pan labels will have the right numbers on them, but it's like the naming changes sometimes. So 599 sap green. We'll look at the pigments in just a second. And tree green, which I think it's probably kind of like a just a did I get as much there? I think it's just a translation, like sap and tree, that probably, like, there might not be the exact word. So that's my thoughts. Oh, pigment wise, let's see, on the Qiaomei we have PG36 and PO49, and we have the exact same pigments on the Meiliang. I like that. I like it when they do an orange and a phthalo green together for a sap green. That's probably my favorite sap green combination. Or a PG7 and an orange pigment, but they're both phthalo greens. Beautiful, warm, yellowy sap green. Oh, so pretty, so vibrant. More vibrant than, say, an olive. Very, very nice. Now the Meiliang seems to be a little bit more, maybe a little bit darker. Let's get it diluted and spread it out and see what we got. Very pretty color. I love this color. I think I like the Meiliang one a little bit more. It's a little bit more, it's a little cooler. It's also a little bit more robust, it seems. Both are beautiful though. I'm going to add a little bit more water in there just to see if I can get it to settle into the papers, like because I like how the Qiaomei is settling into the paper there. Both gorgeous though. Very, very pretty. All right, next color, 314. That is, oh, that's not right. Oh, goodness gracious, where's 314? That's another green. That is Hooker's Green. 314, Hooker's Green Light. And pigment-wise, we have PB15, PO49, and PG7. So same colors we had for that, plus PB15, but that's the first color, so that's going to influence the mix a little bit more, and that's PB15 right there. Hooker's Green, we have PB15, PO49, PG7, so the same colors in the same order. I'm going to do a little dot here. Now, when I was a kid, I loved Hooker's Green. That was my favorite green. But I was always embarrassed to say the name because I always was thinking of, you know, like a, well, I don't want to get demonetized, but I was always embarrassed to say the name to my art teacher. It's like, that's a bad word. I can't say that. Little innocent Lindsay. I think I'm going to get a little bit more of this because I don't think I got as much. There we go. I want to be fair. I want to be fair and square. Let's dilute this up. Nowadays, though, I prefer either a sap green or just a straight phthalo green. And I like the phthalo green blue shade, and I like to mix that with an orange, like I mentioned earlier, to make my own sap green. That is a pretty color, though. But generally, I find most greens, with the exception of sap green, to need a little help to make it look like a believable green, and you need to mix it with something else to make it look like it belongs in a painting. In general, unless you're painting a box of crayons, then go ahead and use it from the tube. Both are pretty. Actually, I like the earthier look of the Meiliang a little bit more, but that one's a little bit more vibrant. Since I generally don't use Hooker's Green, I don't know, I like the texture of the Qiaomei better. It feels like a nicer paint. The pigments just look nicer on the paper. But very similar. Very similar. But I would say the Qiaomei seems like it's a better quality. We're getting some pretty granulation in our sap greens over here. Wonder what's granulating. Maybe the PO49? I don't know, because the other two colors that they used, the other color they used doesn't granulate, generally. It's almost got a little bit of a golden in there. It's kind of pretty. Anyway, PO74. That is Sienna in Meilaing. And it is Burnt Sienna in Qiaomei. And the color is PR101 and PR101 for both of them. So that's going to be your red iron oxide. Red iron oxide, you see that as a lot of colors: Venetian red, Indian red, English red, but they treat it differently. So if you have like a burnt sienna that's a PR101, it's generally more transparent than, say, an English red or an Indian red that uses the same pigment. Let's give it, be fair. That seems it seems like the Meiliang is a little bit darker. Winsor & Newton, White Knights, I'm trying to think what other, Sennelier, they all use PR101 as their burnt sienna. Now that is weak. The Qiaomei is weak with that amount of pigment. And I tried to keep the pigment amount the same, and the Meiliang is much stronger. The Meiliang, to me, looks like Winsor & Newton's burnt sienna, and the Qiaomei looks like White Knights or Yarka, St. Petersburg, which is kind of weak. I'm gonna Meiliang the win on that one, but maybe and it looked darker out of the tube. That's, yeah, the Meiliang one is nicer. I'm just gonna take the stuff out of the cap. I'm kind of hesitant, though, I have to say, to put my brush into, I'm going to wipe that with a Q-tip, into my paint tube, even though I see people do it all the time, because I'm kind of afraid that if I had some, like, if there was some gunk in my water, that it would get transferred. Alright, I'm using more of the Qiaomei on this. The Meiliang one is better. I'm just going to go out and say it, but I wanted to get a better representation of the color. And I'm going to just wipe off any water that might have gotten in there with that Q-tip. Yeah, I like the Meiliang better. I like the texture of that Qiaomei, but the Meiliang does have a nicer color and a better consistency. All right, now we have 676. That is Van Dyke Brown. They call it Van Dyke's Brown. Van Dyke Brown is a very customary color. You see it a lot. You see it a lot, especially in oil paint. It's a little bit more of a neutral toned brown. It's usually not ashy, but also not red. I got maybe a little bit more than I needed there, but I'm going to try to keep it fair. I think I have I'm not going to dissolve all the Qiaomei. I think I have a little bit more Qiaomei than the Meiliang. So I'll dissolve all the Meiliang. Oh, that is a beautiful brown. Kind of like a burnt umber, honestly. Oh, wait, we didn't look at the pigments. The Meiliang is PR101 and PBR7, so that might make it lean a little red. That's a gorgeous color. I still think it looks pretty neutral. It looks like a burnt umber, and I'm here for it. Love that color. And in the Qiaomei, it is also PR101 and PBR7. But I'm gonna try not to liquefy all that brown because I feel like I took too much. I'm gonna say that that's weird. The Qiaomei looks like it might did I get the right color? Yeah, the Qiaomei looks like it has like PY42, almost like a yellowy undertone to it. I don't know if that shows on camera. Can you see how it looks? Like that looks a little bit more reddish and that looks a little bit more yellowish when you compare the undertones. You probably can't see on camera. They're both very pretty and I like them both. But I'm just gonna hold it up. They're both very pretty. I'm not sure if that's going to show up. Does that look a little bit more red to you than that? It's subtle. It's subtle. But, yeah, and I didn't dissolve all of it. There's still a big chunk there. I'm just going to wipe that off with a Q-tip so that it doesn't, like, stick to my other swatches, because I probably will try to remember to keep this swatch. They're both very pretty, but I do like the Meiliang one a little bit better. Okay, we're going to set this aside because I have one more swatch to do. And this is 76, 076, right? I feel like I did that one. I did 074, 076, burnt sienna. Meiliang over here. And, oh, it's a different color. 076 is called burnt umber, which is so confusing. Let's see. We can zoom in for a second. I'm just going to remember to zoom out before we're done. So, pigment, we have PY42 and PBR7, so that's yellow ochre and your typical burnt umber or burnt sienna brown color that a lot of brands use. PBR7 is used in so many different browns and just depends on how they treat it or what color they end up with. And then here we have also PY42, which is our yellow ochre, and PBR7, which is our same brown pigment. I'm going to try to do equal dabs. Burnt umber is a nice mixing color. Burnt umber, Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna, I use them all. Out of the tube, the Meiliang's looking a little bit more milky. Actually, just a smidge, not bad. I'm giving a little extra because I thought it was a little light on the dab there. Okay. Start by dissolving the Qiaomei. It's kind of like a milk chocolatey color because of the yellow ochre, I think, is adding a little bit of PY42, adding a little bit of opacity and yellowy undertone. To me, this does not look like a burnt umber. That's not, it almost looks like just a plain umber. What are they calling? They're calling that burnt umber. To me, it almost feels like a raw umber. Then Meiliang, I think Meiliang has, got it going on with the earth tones, quite frankly. Now this is so pretty. I really like the Meiliang one better. Very pretty. They're both nice, but this one has just a little bit more of a richness that I really enjoy. All right. Now I'm just going to set that aside for a second. We're going to let that dry, and I want to show you the two different sets of watercolors that we've been comparing in their original pan form. So let's zoom out. And I'm going to compare those swatches as well. So this is the Qiaomei watercolor set here. This is the Pretty Excellent watercolor set here. This is my original one. Now if you get the Pretty Excellent set, I do have a newer one. If you get the new set, instead of having this one big molded piece with all the pans in it, what you get is you get all these in their own half pans. So you could take them out, you can move them around, you can do whatever you want. And then they sit inside of a thin plastic kind of holder like this instead of the metal rails. And this is the Qiaomei. This has individual half pans. It has this little thing in here so you can lift out the pans if you want to move them around. And also you can lift out this top palette so you have two mixing areas, which I think is kind of handy. This feels really sturdy and high quality, but it is all plastic. This, I would say weight-wise, they're about the same weight-wise. So you do get more color and less weight if you're backpacking with your paints or whatnot. Comparing the colors, like I said, when I swatched these out side by side from the pans, I did find the Qiaomei to be color by color, the colors to be nicer. But as far as the overall palette, I found the Pretty Excellent set to be a little bit more useful. So the tube colors that we're looking at today correspond with these pan sets. They are designed to be able to refill the pan sets that you already have. I think that is Paul Rubens' way of offering kind of like an open stock refill without having to have individual tubes for sale, because they sell to the American market on Amazon, and it's very expensive to sell individual low cost items on Amazon. That's why if you go to buy a tube of paint on Amazon, you're paying like you're paying MSRP plus like $5.99 shipping from like any major brand. It's expensive because of all the fees that Amazon charges their sellers to have their products in the Amazon warehouse so that it ships from Amazon, which is most of us want to buy stuff shipped from Amazon so we know it's like there and ready to go. So that's why a lot of these brands do not offer open stock products. So this is kind of their response to, okay, we want to give you refills so you don't have to keep buying the tin. This is how we can do it. That's my that's my interpretation anyway. So if we look at the colors here, I mean, you do have a cool yellow and a warm yellow. Cool yellow, warm yellow. The Pretty Excellent has extra oranges. We've got a couple warm reds. And we've got kind of 3 warm reds and 1 cool red with the Qiaomei set. This is the Qiaomei palette. Oh, you got two cool reds. You got like a alizarin crimson and a rose. So that's good for mixing. We've got we've got 2 cool blues and 2 warm blues in the Qiaomei. We have a yellow ochre and a raw sienna in the Pretty Excellent. We don't have either of those in the Qiaomei, which for me, again, right next to ultramarine blue is yellow ochre or raw sienna is my other must-have color that I use up and I replace, and I buy in the honkin' tubes from Da Vinci because I use it so much. So that's a big drawback for me for the Qiaomei palette, is there's no yellow ochre. Of course, you could go through and you could pop out one of these other colors and put in a pan of yellow ochre. That's not the end of the world. And like this color here looks like it's a yellow ochre, but it's not. It's a gamboge hue, so it's much more intense and less. It has less of that softer mixing ability. You could take that, mix it with the umbery color, and mix something kind of like it, but for such a limited palette, I think it's kind of a bummer that it doesn't have that. We've got a beautiful sap green in both sets. We've got a beautiful phthalo green in both sets. So yeah, I mean, I would just look at that. These paints are slightly higher quality, but they're both good, man. And I have to say, I think the earth tones in the Pretty Excellent are more lovely than the earth tones in the Qiaomei set. I don't know why. Maybe because earth tones the pigments are cheap in earth tones, so they were able to kind of go for it in the Pretty Excellent. I don't know why they don't seem as good in the Meiliang though. I mean, in the Qiaomei though. That's just something that I noticed. So that's what these two sets look like. I recommend both of them, but as far as the sets go, of the pans, I would say, as far as like a learning set or a gift set, I would do the Pretty Excellent, because I think it's a more useful variety of colors. And while the quality of the paints are better in the Qiaomei, I almost feel like the Meiliangs don't wear down as quickly. And then you've also, even if you have so many convenience colors here that and the colors they chose are more useful. Yes, you can mix with these. I mix with these all the time, but you also have those other colors if you have difficulty mixing a certain color. When it comes to the tube sets, though, I would prioritize the Qiaomei tubes. I think the Qiaomei tubes are quite a bit nicer than the Pretty Excellent tubes, and I'll show you just in a side-by-side swatch the bigger swatches. Then I'll show you the well, actually, let's show you the whole palette. This is the Pretty Excellent tubes. The Pretty Excellent tubes is a beautiful variety. If you have the pan set already, you just want to refill for those, this is a good option. If you don't want to like try to hunt down open stock colors from another brand, this is a great option. The downside to this is that some of the textures on these paints I find to be not as nice. I swatched the pan sets underneath the tube sets here, and the pan sets do seem to be a higher quality and a nicer paint than the tube paints in some colors, not all colors, but some. These oranges here, for one, the pans seem to be much nicer. There's a bit of scaling in these orange colors. And then just in some of these, they have a weird texture that's not apparent in the pan paints. Other things are perfect. The ultramarine's perfect. You know, a lot of the colors are perfect. Perfect matches, perfect texture-wise. Like this, this green here, this hooker's green, that's very, kind of has a bit of a graininess to it that's not in the pan version. And also this, this emerald green here. But then you've got that beautiful Viridian olive. Those are all lovely. The earth tones are all lovely too. But I do think the pans are actually a little bit nicer. So, just to consider that. And here is the Qiaomei swatch. I swatched the pans in this long skinny strip next to each of the tube colors. There's even a little bit of that graininess in the hooker's green and the Qiaomei as well, so you know. But I found the earth tones to be a little bit duller than in the Meiliang. But overall, I thought the matches were really nice. I didn't see anything that was off, and definitely great for refilling those colors. And because the Qiaomei seemed to wear down a little bit quicker, it wouldn't be a bad idea to grab the tubes for refilling. I don't know why that would be. Maybe I definitely have used the Meiliangs more than the Qiaomei, and I have divots in the Qiaomei, so I'm not sure what's going on there. So now let's look at the side-by-sides. They should probably have had a chance to mostly dry by now, and we can take a look at each of these colors. I did notice that these two colors seem maybe a little bit different. The Meiliang seems a little bit cooler than the Qiaomei lemon. The Qiaomei, that was 109, that color did seem a little bit warmer than its Meiliang counterpart. The, I think that's cadmium red hue. The Qiaomei is more smooth and transparent than the Meiliang. Cadmium red's not a transparent color if you had the real deal anyway, so I don't know if that's important to you, but as far as the mixing orange, it's going to be a better mixing warm red than that, just because of the scaliness there. For the permanent rose, both are gorgeous. The Qiaomei was maybe a little bit stronger, but boy, they were both gorgeous. The alizarin crimson, the Qiaomei, is much stronger and also a little bit more neutral, whereas the Meiliang is a little bit bluer. It has a little bit more of a blue undertone, so if there's something there. And also, I'm seeing is where the pigment did collect there, it's shiny, where you have that same strength of pigment all through this swatch, and there's no shine to them, which is really nice. I don't like to have that shiny quality on my paint. This kind of mauve color, I think they're both pretty similar. This sky blue color, I think the Qiaomei actually has a little bit of a grit to it and a little bit of a haze over the swatch. I think the Meiliang's a nicer color that has more white in it clearly. Depends on what you like, I guess, but the Meiliang seems to be a better quality. But then again, I'm also seeing a little bit of very, very, very subtle texture of scaling in here that isn't in the Qiaomei, except on the white. I can see that little bit of a chalkiness, which must mean that they must have ground the pigments a little finer in the Qiaomei versus the Meiliang. For the cobalt blue hue, the Qiaomei has a little bit more granulation to it. It's a pretty color. It's definitely more purple leaning than the Meiliang. I don't think that's good or bad. I do like the texture in the Qiaomei. But I can see why the Meiliang did this and had that a little bit more neutral or greener than their ultramarine blue, so they have a little bit more variety in mixing. That's another reason why I say the Meiliang 36 set is a better offering, I think, in the pan version. Plus, it's cheaper. It's cheaper. The Qiaomei pan set is, I think, around $28 in the Meiliang. The Meiliang's gone up. I think a regular price around 25 or 26, but generally can be had for around 20. Black Friday had it for like 17, so you know, keep your eyes peeled for sales. I still think it's a decent value at 25 or 30, to be honest. If we look at the ultramarines, both have gorgeous ultramarine blues. The Meiliang's a little bit more of like a French ultramarine, a little bit. Actually, you know, the Meiliang almost looks like an ultramarine finest, where it's less granulating, has a little bit more, and this is the tube version, has a little bit more of a smoothness to it, whereas the Qiaomei has a little bit more granulation. For the indigo, aka Payne's gray, the Qiaomei is way more gray. The Meiliang is way more blue. So it just depends, again, what do you like? Down here on our intense / phthalo blue, our Qiaomei is more neutral to, yeah, it's a little bit more neutral. It's a cool blue, but it's more neutral. The Meiliang is more green leaning, which, you know, gives you a nice variety compared to the ultramarine blue. I use the phthalo and the ultramarine is like a split primary, so it is nice that that's a little more green, that's a little more red. It gives me more options, especially since we have the kind of cobalt right in the middle. The sap green, I actually kind of like the color in the Meiliang better, but I like the texture in the Qiaomei a little bit more. You can see this pretty like split of the orangey gold pigments out of it, which is just a personal preference. It's not, I wouldn't say one's better, one's worse. They both have I like that color better, but I like that texture better. Just completely up to you. Here, this is interesting. On the emerald, I think it's the emerald, no, Hooker's green. Hooker's green, look, you can really see the scaliness here. It's almost like a mineral deposit type look on the Meiliang, but not as much on the Qiaomei. This is not apparent in the pan paints at all from Meiliang, so I do think the pan paints are a little bit better quality than the tubes. In my opinion, they may have, and even with the new tubes, I mean, the new pans, I did swatch the new pans versus the old pans. I didn't notice any difference, except for like 2 of the colors were a little bit different, but nothing, and that was like 7 years in between those 2 sets. Not a big deal. But on the tubes, I do notice a little bit more extender or filler or something. Maybe they have to do something to that paint to make it tubable versus panable. I don't know. I didn't have any binder separation in any of these tubes though, which is very good because I have had issues with Paul Rubens, like their opaque watercolors and their Gusai watercolors. They have so many different ranges. Those are their more Eastern, traditional Eastern watercolors. I did have binder separation with those lines of paint, but not with any of their Western formulations. What we would consider traditional watercolor in the West versus what the Chinese would consider traditional watercolor in the East, because you got to remember their culture goes so much further back than ours here in America, especially in America. You know, so they were doing watercolor on rice paper, you know, before we were a twinkle in the colonialist eyes over here. For the kind of sienna color, we have the Meiliang actually is stronger and prettier in my opinion. And same thing with the Van Dyke. I think this is the Van Dyke Brown 676. Yeah, Van Dyke Brown slash, what were they calling it? Oh, Van Dyke Brown in both colors. They both are lovely. They both are lovely. The Meiliang's a little more red and the Qiaomei is a little bit more neutral. But both are very pretty. And then this one, 7.6, they're calling 076. This is burnt sienna. The Meiliang is much prettier in my opinion. The Qiaomei is rather weak and dull in comparison. But there you have it, a very in-depth look at all of these paints. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. My pick would be the Qiaomei tubes, but pretty excellent pan paints. What's your pick? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy crafting.